yeah, I like the situation of it, and I really like it at LMH. Yeah.
Great. Esmé.
Okay, so I did an open application. I didn't go for any college because I just found that way too overwhelming when you're trying to choose a university and then you get to Oxford or Cambridge, like, okay, and then choose from all these different colleges. And I ended up at St Edmund Hall. So I only got interviewed at one college for my interview. But I really, really love St Edmund Hall. It's a great college. But I think don't overthink the college thing too much would be my advice, because I think you don't actually know what the other experience is like at a different college. So most people just advocate so much for their college because it's all they know. And I think most people do have a good time at their college because, like I say, it's what they know. But obviously you could do things like, if it's in the city centre, you could try and apply for that. But doing an open application was really fine, and it did take away a bit of the stress, and it's just, you sort of end up where you end up, and I really enjoyed it.
Great. Nick?
I kind of made a list of colleges I'd either visited or like kind of heard of, kind of had a top three. Worcester was my number one, to be fair, but I kind of spoken to someone who was at Oxford and they were like, don't apply there, they won't accept you. And I naively just said, oh, okay. Don't listen to people who say that, just apply anyway, because then I kind of realized if they want me, they'll want me. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, but I ended up choosing Pembroke, just because also it was the kind of the first college I'd ever visited. I remember really, really liking it with one of my friends who I visited with. So I applied there, didn't even realize it was like so close to the city centre, and it just kind of ticks everything that I'd actually want. But in terms of actually kind of choosing a college, again, yeah, don't put too much weight into it, but think about what you want from a college. Like if you want a gym, or if you want it to be close to, I don't know, to the rowing facilities, or if you want an ensuite in your first year, just think about them, and kind of, that's always something to consider. But I mean, I wanted an ensuite in my first year, and I thought that would be like a deciding factor. I ended up not getting one, and I mean, it was fine. So yeah, don't overthink it. But yeah.
Thanks, Nick. Gianni?
So the main factor for me, so I decided to apply to Christchurch in the end, partly because I'd visited it on an open day and really liked how the place looked. Like the architecture's really nice, and they've also got like access to the Christchurch meadows. But the main reason was because I read on the Oxford website about how generous Christchurch financial support is, and also their guarantee of accommodation for like all the years of your degree usually. So I thought that would be quite convenient because doing medicine, I'm at Oxford for like 6 years. So I thought it would be nice to have like the option of, living in college for that whole time if I wanted to. I know a lot of older medics, like in 4th, 5th and 6th years, do like live outside of college, and that is an option. But I thought I'd probably, it just takes the hassle out of like, being forced to find accommodation later on. And yeah, so a combination of like the financial support, the bursaries provided by Christchurch, and also their like guarantee of accommodation, those were like the main deciding factors for me.
Great, thanks. And how about you, Millie?
So I chose Jesus because a friend went round, or like 2 or 3 who had gone on open days. They were like, oh yeah, we think you'd like it, which I think was mainly because the sports pitches are on site, and that was the main thing for me. And I went round, and it was, it was like really pretty, and I didn't really put much thought into it, I would say. For people applying this year, because I don't really know how much you'll be able to go visit, I would say 2 quite big things which you can look at online, which I think do reflect quite a lot on the colleges, is the size of the college and like where the accommodation is. Because size, they say on the website, so the smallest college in Cambridge is called Peterhouse, and they take about 45 undergrads a year. And then Jesus takes about 150, and the biggest is John's, which takes about 250. And that does give quite a concrete sense of what the colleges are like, because you will probably know if you want to be somewhere smaller or want to be somewhere bigger. The other thing is, I think, as Zara kind of mentioned, accommodation. Cambridge is quite small, but it is surprising how far out you can get stuck. So Jesus provides on-site accommodation for all 3 years, which is quite big. So if you're kind of stressing, that might be like a good concrete thing to look into. Another thing I just want to say quickly about Cambridge is there are quite strong stereotypes about the colleges, and don't like, don't trust that. So if you go on like the tab articles, which I did quite a lot, they will give certain stereotypes like, oh, this college is really posh, this college is really left-wing, and you might think like, oh, like say you are really left-wing, you want to kind of set your heart on that, like all colleges have all types of people, and the stereotypes don't really mean much. So don't stress like, oh, you don't want to apply to a college you think is pretty because of a certain stereotype, or you do want to apply to a college because of a certain stereotype. Like, they don't really hold true. And just a final thing is, for an open application, because I've been on some of these things before, people have said, oh, it looks like you're not interested. I know for Cambridge, when you're applying to a college, they can't tell if you've handed in an open application. So if you're really like, if you just don't even want to get involved in choosing a college, I would recommend having a look, but you don't actually have to, and you won't be disadvantaged if you do choose to put in an open application, which means you don't pick a college.
Thanks, Millie, that was really insightful. So the next question I've got is probably just for me, which is recommendations for super curricular activities that you can do now for STEM students in preparation. So I think something that's really important and doesn't get stressed enough is that STEM students aren't expected to read a large amount of books. So you don't need to prove that you can read a massive amount. Like, I haven't read any book for my degree. I read a textbook at most. So the thing I think was most important is just to show that you're passionate and you really want to do what you want to do, because you go into a lot of detail. Like, if you do a physics degree, you're going to study physics 6 hours a day for like 6 days a week for 4 years. That's a really long time. So just showing that you actually want to study it. I read articles more than books because I read a chapter of a book rather than a whole book. And in an interview, they might ask you a question about it in general, but they will generally do like calculation questions when you get given a piece of paper and said, answer this as if you were like in a, like, just answer it through with us rather than talk about things. And so they really just want to see you're interested, and they also just want to see that you like work hard. I think that's probably the biggest thing is you really care about your subjects. Like, if I broke down my personal statements, the first 3 big paragraphs were about why I loved my A-levels and how they were applicable, and why this certain part of the maths A-level course interested me. So I was like, oh, mechanics was really interesting to me. This is exactly why. So yeah, it's kind of don't try and read swathes of books, because you're not going to do that in your degree, and it's just not as useful. Spend your time thinking about problems. Another thing which can prepare you quite well is Newton Physics. That's a really good site. It gives you really difficult questions, and you can kind of unlock why you find a question difficult. Okay, so on to the next question, which has just been put in the chat. How much time is given over to lectures or tutorials? And to what extent are you, as a student, left to your own devices? I think Esmé can probably give a good insight into kind of humanities.
Yeah, so I think, sorry, it does vary a lot by degree, but I have about 6 hours, I'm just trying to think, 6 hours of lectures a week, maybe. I think geography is quite a lecture intense course compared to some of the others. And then like 1 hour of tutorial a week, and 2 to 3 hours of the online practicals at the minute, but of a practical a week. And I do think it took me a while to get into the swing of things and the kind of rhythm of doing lectures and also your tutorial reading. But I think being quite self-directed and motivated is quite important. But if you've chosen a subject that you love, that should come quite naturally. So yeah, for geography anyway, you do the lectures because that informs you of what to do. And I think the biggest thing I wish I'd been told at the start of term was that the lectures are just a starting point, which was really weird, going from lessons at A-levels, which is kind of, you sit in a lesson for an hour and tells you everything you need to know. Your lectures are just a kind of brief overview and starting point, and from there you pick stuff you're interested in, and the reading is where you get all your information, which sounds a bit scary, but it's not once you've sort of got into the rhythm of it, and the tutorials are really helpful for kind of guiding that.
So Doaa, do you want to talk about a purely essay-based subject?
Yeah, I would say, especially when you're doing like social sciences, you don't have a lot of contact hours because you don't have labs, you don't have practicals and stuff. So most of your time is self-directed. So the departments will give you a reading list. You are not expected to read everything on that reading list. It's almost impossible to go through the entire reading list. So part of what you learn to do after a while is you get the essay question, like say for politics, I get an essay question, have a rough idea from my background knowledge about what sort of things I want to talk about, and then kind of choose from the reading what I think is the most effective, and then do some additional research myself to kind of supplement my points and give evidence. So at the beginning, like it is quite daunting, especially with like the lectures. Some of the lectures, like they don't cover exactly what you want to talk about, or so yeah, I would say it's something you learn to do over time, and there's a lot of independent research. But I would say like it gets easier, so it's not something to worry about. Just remember, like try and like keep in mind like answering the specific essay question. Like don't read everything around that topic because you won't be able to do it. Just read what you can to kind of answer the question that's in the essay. Yeah.
So as a scientist, I have a completely different perspective, and I don't think it gets spoken about enough. The lectures are the most important thing I have to go to. Like, I get given set notes in my lectures, and they will cover the syllabus that I have, and I will get examined on the syllabus. And so in my first year, I had 8 to 10 lectures a week, and then I had a day of labs, which is 10 till 5, and lots of other, like physicists have 2 days of labs, chemists have 2 days, so they have a lot more. And then I get set 2 problem sheets or tutorial sheets. So that's another 2 hours of class with 2 people on one. And so, as I said, I don't read anything extra. The only time I'll ever read anything extra is if I don't like how the lecturer explained it. And then I'll go to a textbook and I'll re-teach myself because I just didn't get on with that particular style. So it's quite a lot more structured. And yeah, so you can really have a timetable much better. So I would say overall, you're left to your devices quite a lot. But I've found that because of the Oxford and Cambridge style of colleges, you have a tutor who does speak to you quite often. So while you have to chug along at your own pace and you will read as many books as you want to, they will ask you, are you struggling to get all the reading done? How are you managing your time? And other universities don't have that as much. So it is a lot more personal of a setup. Oh, okay, we've got another one. This is another one for me. What A-level resources do you recommend for maths, further maths and physics? And then what certain part of A-level maths? They're shutting the meeting down in 2 minutes. This will be the last question and I'll speak quickly. The most important thing is past paper questions. I go on physics and maths tutor. I also tutor A-level maths and physics, and that is like invaluable. And kind of what interested me, to be honest, A-level maths was not that interesting for me personally. You just had to like kind of plug stuff in. So I really had to kind of spin it well in my personal statement. Don't be like, if you enjoy maths and physics, don't be put off any of these STEM degrees. Like they get way more interesting, way like you've scratched the surface, and that's really exciting. And if that excites you as well, then a STEM degree is the right thing for you. But like in general, they don't have to be the most fascinating thing in the world. And yeah, so I would do lots of past paper questions. Oh, hello, Gemma.
Hello. I'm not quite sure why I'm here.
Okay, we're Ramay. We're actually going to stop in a minute, so I'm sorry, I'm not going to introduce you at all.
But sure I got it. I might try.
Yeah, so I would. Yeah, I would just encourage you to always just ask more questions to people, and they can tell you why. They have their personal insights. Yeah, sorry, we're gonna have to wrap up in about a minute, and I think that is going to kick us out. So thank you for coming. I'm sorry, I only pressed record about halfway through, so we've only recorded half of it, but you might see it pop up on the YouTube channel at some point. I wish you all the best luck, everyone in your class, and yeah, if anyone has any final words as well. If you have any more questions or anyone wants to speak further, they can contact any of the charities associated with the event. People are always willing to answer questions or send you in the right direction. Thank you all the mentors for coming as well. I hope this has been really productive. Gianni.
Oh, I want to point out some colleges, access departments, they have like an online chat platform. So if you look up those different colleges, you can talk to some of the current students, like set up an account and like ask them whatever questions. So there are some colleges that offer that. I'd encourage you to go look at those. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Lots of people are willing to help is I think what the conclusion that you should get from this. Oh, I've just been told I think I might be kicked out. But people are always willing to help, and that's the mentality of a lot of people at Oxbridge. So keep on asking questions, and good luck if you end up applying to everyone. And I wish you all the best luck in the future. Well, we can wait to be kicked out, or people can leave. Bye everyone. Thank you for coming.